This is Beat the Closing Line with Nicole, Mo, and Eli.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beat the Closing Line. I am your host, Nicole Russo, alongside NFL analyst for TheLines.com, Eli Hershkovich, and Mo Nuwwarah. Sorry we're a day late, but as always, you know the drill. We are going to be taking a look at opening lines, handicapping the games, talking about how we think those lines might move as we inch closer to game time for NFL Week 9. Before we dive into the discussion, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring the bell so you know every time we post a new video. And if you are listening to us where you get your podcasts, make sure to subscribe to the Beat the Closing Line pod and make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Pod so you can have a chance to win an Amazon gift card. The guys are 18-13-1 with their against the spread picks so far. Eli, talk about NFL Week 8 for you.
Yeah, another so-so week. I carried Mo through the first, 4 or 5 weeks, and now he's carrying me. I believe I went 0-2 with my podcast picks, and in week 8, Mo went 2-0. Did come through on the back end with Green Bay, decided to bet the Packers after looking at that injury report before kickoff, and then Browns plus 3.5, down to plus 3 on Monday Night Football came through. So good season for me overall. Not a great last couple weeks, Nicole. So looking to pick it back up for the crew here and for our listeners.
We got this. We're turning a new leaf. Mo, 2-0 for you on the pod last week.
2-0 with 2 very strong plays, and didn't bet that much more than that, to be honest. I didn't really like last week's card, but really loved Browns and Packers. They both came through big time. I was actually watching Monday night in Resorts World in Vegas. My buddy gets treated like a king there, so he took me out to an extravagant dinner, and I added some Browns money line live there. So nailed that one for, I think, plus 140 is what they were dealing over there. It was a good week to be backing the Browns. Didn't have to sweat much.
I even got to see you in Las Vegas, although I did not get to give you the star treatment, but Mo met me after Halloween bingo. But I didn't win, so we didn't get the VIP treatment. That is awesome. Congratulations. Where did you eat? Maybe what steakhouse?
No, we went to this I think it's like an Asian fusion
Fuhu
type of place in there. Fuhu, yep.
It's a good spot if you guys are out in Las Vegas. And my cousin happens to be one of the bartenders there, so I can't hype it up more than that. All right, let's get into our Week 9 bets. The Washington Commanders are coming off of a 17-16 win against the Indianapolis Colts and will now face the NFC North leading Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings have won 5 consecutive games and are 3.5-point favorites this week against Washington. But Eli, you cannot help yourself. We're back on the Commanders bandwagon. Why do you like them at plus 3.5 in this matchup?
Yeah, we have talked about the Washington Commanders on all but one podcast episode this season. So apologies if you hate Washington. But on the bright side, if you hate Dan Snyder, the Commanders, formerly Redskins owner, he has hired Bank of America to sell the Washington Commanders finally. And it is the Kirk Cousins revenge tour going back to D.C. to take on Dan Snyder for one last time, or face Dan Snyder, I guess, for the first time, depending on how you want to look at it. But a couple different angles in this game make me side with Washington. I bet Washington plus 3.5 on Tuesday night. You can check out our Discord channel, subscribe to the channel, and get all of our notifications when we make our NFL bets along with our college basketball bets, which start next week. So Washington has the 4th highest pressure rate this season across the NFL, despite blitzing about league average. And now you get Chase Young back into the fold to go along with an elite defensive line with Payne, Allen, and Sweat, and especially in the interior. And you go back to that Vikings-Cardinals game last week. Think about this. The look-ahead line for this game was Vikings minus 2.5, probably a little bit juiced. I think Steven and I are going head-to-head yet again. He bet Vikings minus 2.5, minus 115. And now the line's up to 3.5. So Minnesota getting some credit after another one-possession win. That's 5 straight one-possession wins while getting outgained in yards per play in 4 of them. So again, the variance is trending towards Minnesota, and they're taking advantage of it, but how long can it sustain itself? And going back to that Cardinals game, Cardinals got a lot of pressure against that Vikings interior offensive line. Darisaw is playing really well on the outside. I'm surprised by that, and I think the Vikings would admit that they are too, as their, I want to say, second-year left tackle. But again, on the interior, they can be exposed. Kirk Cousins' pressure or pocket rating, I should say, clean pocket rating, accuracy rating, when he's not getting pressured is number 3 in the NFL in comparison to a 31st under pressure accuracy rating. So Cousins does not perform well when the opposing defensive line and teams who blitz. Again, Washington doesn't need to blitz to get pressure, but Cousins isn't great when he's up against pressure, and the Commanders can do just that. And they can also stop the run, too. This is going back to last season, a top 5 rushing defense in expected points added and success rate. And then on the other side of the ball, this shell zone that Ed Donatel runs is extremely exposable. They're bottom 10 in opposing passing attack success rate through the air. We've seen it constantly. Quarterbacks dice up this zone defense, where in the defensive backfield, I know Patrick Peterson is actually playing a little bit better of late, but beyond that, Cameron Dantzler continues to have up and down weeks. So even though it's Taylor Heineke, and yes, it's a 2-game sample size where he beat the Packers, he beat the Colts, the Commanders overall are riding a 3-game winning streak, but he has an above average expected or completion percentage over expected CPOE in those 2 starts. And again, small sample size, but he is playing well, and he did play against that Gus Bradley cover 3 zone defense, going up against another zone defense this week. So I think the Commanders getting that, getting 3.5 over the key number of 3, with the Vikings continuing to get too much credit in the market at 6-1, a fraudulent 6-1 record. I backed Washington for better or worse at plus 3.5.
We have seen the line move in the Commanders' favor the last 3 games, and they've covered in each one. I've actually been impressed with what we've seen in Heineke. Like you said, small sample size, but I've been impressed with what we've seen. I like Washington here as well, but I also, maybe I'm crazy, like the over at 43.5. Kirk Cousins threw for 232 yards and 2 passing touchdowns last week, and Heineke had 279 passing yards. Both of these teams rank high for passing attempts and passing yards per game, and I think that is going to lead to a good amount of points this weekend. Probably going to have to sweat this one a little bit more than my Miami Dolphins team total over in last week, where I think they hit that in the 3rd quarter. But
nicely done there.
Yeah, I gotta plug my plays here as well. Thank you, but yeah, I like the over here. Mo, what do you think?
I'm much more in agreement with you than Eli. I thought the line was about fair for this game. I definitely do like the over quite a bit, though. I was really surprised to see the total was this low. 43.5. Yeah, that seems really low with 2 very capable passing offenses against passing defenses that I don't have that much confidence in. Especially the Commanders, they're 28th in pass defense DVOA, which their EPA isn't that low, which that's telling me basically, since DVOA is schedule adjusted, that's just basically telling me that they've played a pretty weak slate of opposing passing games, and they're still having success beating this secondary. Beautiful day in the forecast. My buddy was telling me there should be some bad weather in some of these Midwest games this weekend, he was telling me. But I checked the forecast, and it looks like a clear forecast in Washington. So, I like the over quite a bit. I do think Taylor Heineke has brought a legitimate upgrade to the table. I mean, he's playing better than Wentz, I think. I like that he's the aggressive sort of bad. When you're looking at a bad team like Washington, I think if you're going to plug in a bad quarterback, you want it to be a bad quarterback who's going to take chances, and that way maybe variance can fall in your favor, you know? So I think he's a decent fit. Their weak point has been when he gets pressured. I've seen him make quite a few kind of silly mistakes when he's been under pressure, but the Vikings below average in pressure rate. They never blitz. So I don't think he's going to be under a ton of duress here.
Yeah, and to your point, Mo, really quick, Vikings add TJ Hawkinson, and to Nicole's point too, with the over. So if the Commanders can't get pressure, then Cousins is going to have time. And, well, if he does have time, that is, if the Commanders don't get pressure, and this secondary is very exploitable.
Next up, we have my local team, the Las Vegas Raiders, who were shut out. Actually, sorry. Well, let me just take that back. We have the New Orleans Saints who shut out the Las Vegas Raiders, my local team, 24-0 last weekend. And the Saints will now face the Baltimore Ravens at home in the Big Easy. The Saints defense was solid last weekend, allowing under 200 yards of total offense. Mo, you like them here as 3-point home underdogs against the Ravens. Give us a little more insight.
Yeah, solid is putting it mildly, for sure, what they did to the Raiders. That was an interesting experience, actually, was watching the Raiders in Las Vegas, going to a couple of the sports books, and they definitely make an effort to put the Raiders on center stage by they pipe in the sound and the announcers from the Raiders over the other games. So that was cool to see. Yeah, and another strong game for this Saints offense. Just seems like week after week they go out there, they move the ball with no names, and they score points. And I know that the Raiders have a pretty stinky defense, but, it's just kind of how many weeks do we need to see the Saints go out there and perform on offense? Andy Dalton's just playing good football outside of those picks he threw against the Cardinals. He's been very good for them, and I think good in the sense of just doing what he's supposed to do. I give a lot of credit to the coaching staff. I think they're working with a lot of injuries and working through these injuries successfully. They're not letting it drag down this offense when it very easily could. And then the defense has kind of been what we've been highlighting in the past with this team. Like, it hasn't been good enough. It hasn't been good enough for the talent level they have on that side of the ball. They've been so strong in recent years and just haven't been able to get it done, particularly rushing the passer this year. But, I was looking, this is another team that DVOA is a lot kinder to them than the EPA data. So once again, that's telling me they've very likely faced a tough slate of opposing offenses, because DVOA has them 12th. So maybe their struggles are somewhat a product of, facing the Bengals with Jamar Chase, hitting their stride, stuff like that. This Raiders passing offense is not a picnic, and they completely shut them down. So I've been expecting better things from this defense, and they might be putting it together now. I think facing the Ravens here, so there's some +3s out there. You got to pay for it, -120 on the +3. But this Ravens passing offense hasn't looked that good in recent weeks. I know Eli has been, pumping the Ravens full of gas as much as he can. But, I'm invested in the Ravens too, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing from this passing offense lately. They started out the season so hot, and it feels like ever since Rashad Bateman went down, they just haven't really been the same. So I looked up what their performance has been since he got hurt, which includes some games where he did try to come back, but I think maybe he wasn't 100%. So since week 5, Ravens 15th in offense EPA overall and 23rd in passing EPA. And that's a massive drop off from where they were at in their early games. So I do think the Bateman injury, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but just when your other receivers are this poor, I think it's making a real mark. And then speaking of marks, Eli's favorite player, Mark Andrews, hasn't been as effective lately. I think dealing with some injuries. Well, we know dealing with some injuries. And I think with those two banged up, I'm just not that worried about this passing game. And that should mitigate kind of if Marshawn Lattimore doesn't come back here. It's just not a matchup where I think that's as big of a deal. The Saints, I think if you only can get a 2.5, I would also consider a teaser there. I just don't see the Ravens running away from them here, because even if the Ravens go up, they're probably going to run the ball a bunch. Saints very strong against the run. So I think whatever way you want to approach the Saints here, I like a play on them.
Very smooth transition there with the speaking of marks, Eli's favorite player, Mark. I got to give you credit. That was a nice, smooth transition. From my perspective, the Saints have been moving the ball, and it seems like the team is prepared to continue to start Dalton because of that reason. Even though Jameis Winston is healthy, they've come out and said if they continue to move the ball on offense, they're going to stick with Dalton. He was able to turn things around from his 3 interception performance in week 7 to go on and throw 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in week 8. And obviously Kamara had an impressive game as well. And I do agree with you that the offense has been firing, but for me, Dalton's too inconsistent for me. I know that you say he's been playing well besides that Arizona Cardinals game, but just with his inconsistency and with that game, it's just stuck in my mind. I'm actually going to pass on this one. I just personally don't like it for me. Eli, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Mo said that I'm high on the Ravens, and I do have Super Bowl futures
We
on
know the
Baltimore.
futures, yes.
You know the futures, and you know you jinxed them earlier in the season. But Nicole, luckily for you, the injury front is starting to get a little cleaner. So there are some keys here for me, and I'm not saying I'm betting Baltimore. I don't think there's any value in the line per se with Ravens -2.5 even. But Ravens are getting healthier up front, and we saw it 2 weeks ago, especially in that second quarter. I know variance didn't go my way. I backed the Saints, and Dalton threw those 2 pick sixes late in the first half, but he did it under pressure. And the Cardinals' pass rush has surprised me of late, going back to that game and last week against the Vikings. Raiders are about average in terms of pass rush win rate. So last week's game and how the Saints established things on the ground didn't really help that front seven in terms of generating pressure against Dalton. And Ravens are around the same, but they are getting healthier up front. Bowser was activated, and he should play in this game. David Ojabo, the rookie defensive end, also should be back. You add Roquan Smith at linebacker, which helps their pass coverage immensely at that position. And then to Mo's point, too, when he mentioned Lattimore, I know Bateman's going to be out. We did see what Isaiah Likely did last week against the Bucs, and the middle of the field for New Orleans is exposable. I know it's not a Lattimore situation, obviously, with the tight end versus a cornerback, but it doesn't help New Orleans secondary if Lattimore doesn't go, and he's dealing with a kidney injury on top of the knee injury. So I actually think it's time to buy on Ravens futures if you haven't yet, considering the numbers around what it was before the season at about 14, maybe a little lower, but 16, 18 to 1. I think it was 18 to 1 around week 1. So I would bet Ravens Super Bowl futures if you want to invest that way rather than diving in here with a Ravens spread bet.
I would just like to let the audience know that Eli has held a grudge against me for these Ravens futures all season long. Like that I have just personally went out there and torn ACLs and, just injured these Ravens players because he thinks that I have jinxed the Ravens on the injury front. I say this team is...
It continued last week. Actually, I take it back because they are banged up. Yes, they're getting healthier defensively, but they are banged up offensively, like Mo mentioned with Bateman, Mark Andrews now. J.K. Dobbins has another injury. Gus Edwards is hurt again. So I take it all back, Nicole. You're still screwing with my Ravens.
Sorry, I apologize. But let's get into some WTF.
What the
Before we get into the main WTF segment, I do want to personally talk about Halloween for a second. We had 60 trick-or-treaters, which I thought was a very solid number. I would say in between 60 to 75, but you guys had me join my community chat. I have. One person in my community got 600 trick-or-treaters.
Wow.
That is absolutely insane to me. And another person said that they thought that they got around 1,200. I think because they bought 2,500 pieces of candy. They gave each
How
kid
many bags
2.
is that?
That is just, I would say the giant bag is about 250 pieces of candy because I have one left over. That's a good amount of candy. I personally spent $75 on candy this year. But I will say we're not the Cool House because we do not hand out the full-size candy bars. That is my goal next year, to be the full-size candy bar house. And there was a neighbor that was not only handing out candy for the kids, but they were also handing out beers and White Claws for the parents. And it's that is smart.
That's boss.
I would be exhausted handing out candy to 600 to 1,200 kids. Like, I would need to take off work the next day if that's how many trick-or-treaters we got to our front lawn. So basically, that was just my fun story. I hope you guys all had a great Halloween, but we'll get into the real WTF segment here, which Eli found an article that ran in the Review Journal that showed that Mattress Mac, unfortunately, his wife is in the hospital. She's dealing with pneumonia and another lung disorder that I personally cannot pronounce, so I'm not going to butcher it. And he still went to the Phillies Astros game. So I don't know. What are your guys' opinions on this one? Is that the wrong move?
It is. We don't know about his relationship, and I always do this with my girlfriend, right? Like you talk about other people's relationships, and then you're like, well, we don't know what's really going on with them. You don't want to judge too much, but at the same time, the guy is, he gets a lot of fame and credit in the newspapers, obviously with the Review Journal in Vegas and online from a sports betting standpoint, because he has all these astronomical futures bets on the Astros, but he's also hedging them within his own mattress store. So it's a net zero, and it doesn't matter whichever side wins. He's just getting the headlines regardless. So he wants to go to Philly and have a good time. Maybe his wife doesn't care. I also held back some vulgar language there. Maybe his wife truly just doesn't care and wants him to have a good time in Philly, and they're at that point in their relationship. So good for him. Good for him for going to Philly and then swearing at fans afterwards. Then again, Philly fans can be pretty rough too.
I don't condone the altercation at the game, but I'm just going to say I've been in a relationship now for like 5-ish years, and they have been married for 41 years. And at that point, I'm with the wife. Like, go to the game. Like, he cannot be helpful in that hospital. He's probably driving her absolutely insane because she's trying to get over pneumonia, and he's just talking about either this mattress promotion or these bets. Like, the last thing she wants to do is be sitting in that hospital bed next to him watching the World Series on like a 720p like 12-inch TV in the hospital room. So she was probably like, please, for the love of God, like, just get out of my hospital room and go so that I can get over my sickness. But Mo, what do you think? Right or wrong move? Go to the game.
I'm always pro going to World Series games since I haven't been to one, and I was planning to go to one this year if it was Braves Astros. That was me and my buddy's plan. He's an Astros fan. I like the
Why did
Braves.
you go last year?
Too poor.
Okay.
Now I'm rich.
All right, so this year was different.
This year, more winning bets apparently.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I just think, God, after 41 years, I can't, who knows what these people, I mean, God, I can't even fathom being married for that long. So, just like, do what you got to do. Go get your hot dog and like the Astros got blown out anyways. So, she probably got her revenge anyways if she didn't want him to go. But
yeah, maybe she bet their life savings on the Philadelphia Phillies to make this a little more against her current husband. Who knows? They might get divorced after this.
Maybe she got a revenge bet in. So you never know. It's okay, Mo. I've also never been to a World Series game if it makes you feel better. Have you, Eli?
I have not. I was young and still a big fan of the Sox when they won the World Series against the Astros, but poor back then, and I guess still poor now. So no World Series games.
Yeah, I don't think the Pirates are making the World Series probably in my lifetime at this point. So no reason to go. But all right, guys, let's take it back into some football, and we'll start. I ended with the Pirates. Let's start with some more disappointing teams. The Bucs and the Rams have both lost 3 of their last 4 games, and will go on to face each other in Tampa. The Bucs are 2.5-point home favorites. Mo, you like them here. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, this is like the NFC Disappointment Bowl. I guess we already had one version of this with Bucs and Packers, so maybe the Bucs.
Yeah, but that was earlier in the season, so at least there was still an optimism.
They both still had hope then.
It's gone now.
Maybe Maybe the Bucs go to 1-1 in the disappointment bowls here. I should say, plan is for me to be in attendance at this game. So, along with the boss. So, should be fun. We thought the tickets to this were going to be running us preseason when we checked, they were like $450 a piece. They should be paying us to go in now. I think it's going to be like $100. Just had to wait for these teams to lose like a combined 8 games.
Yeah.
I was watching that Bucs Ravens. I think we all were, obviously, primetime game there. Second half collapsed, obviously, but the Bucs completely dominated the Ravens in the first half. I mean, the Ravens were even lucky to be on the scoreboard. They just had that field goal off a 5-yard field, basically. I think they muffed punt on like own 12 or something, and then kicked a short field goal. Ravens were lucky to even be on the scoreboard. They dominated in the second half, credit to them for that. But I think the Bucs maybe aren't quite as bad as the market thinks right now. They are coming into a good spot here with getting extra rest and Rams traveling across country here. Basically starting there, I'm already looking into the Bucs, and then when I'm looking into this matchup, I'm liking the fact that the Bucs run D, which has been really, really bad in some of the games, I don't really have to worry about that at all in this game. The Chiefs completely steamrolled them on the ground. The Panthers did as well. The Ravens in the second half, but the Rams offensive line has been just atrocious all year at basically every part of football. They can't pass block. They can't run block. Adjusted line yards, to put a number on it, adjusted line yards from Football Outsiders, they're second worst, dead last. Dead last in the league in adjusted line yards. This offensive line, series of injuries, and just been getting wrecked basically all season. We've just seen it multiple times with the 49ers. They had a decent half of offense against the Niners, but then second half, they just completely got shut down. Basically, once it got outside of kind of scripted plays and the game plan, it was ugly. And the Bucs, I like that they're basically backs against the wall here, playing for their season at home. I like that we've seen the Rams destroy the Bucs in the interior O-line in the past. They've really had the Bucs number in past years, but this year the Rams pass rush has not been quite as strong. 31st in pressure rate. It's pretty shocking to see the Rams rank that low in pressure rate when you have Aaron Donald still playing at a very high level. But that's just how kind of
Von Miller.
Yeah. Lose Vaughn and just, I don't know. It just hasn't been as good. And hopefully for my sake and Tom Brady, who I detest, but he has really struggled versus that interior pressure. And it's always kind of been his kryptonite is when you can get into his face, because he's so strong at navigating the pocket from the outside rushers. He's very good at moving his ultra slow feet and getting into the right position so he can still get the ball out of there. But it's tougher when it's coming right up the middle. And I also like that the Bucs plugged in some dude named Leverett. I don't know. He played
just to
way
let you
better.
guys know, that is exactly how Mo has written on his notes.
Leverett. But
something
he played way
Leverett
better than the starter. He did. So that could help. Something Goddard, that rookie, he's been getting his ass kicked all year, and something Leverett might be an upgrade. Who knows? Another injury here to monitor. Cooper Kupp. It sounds like he's definitely going to play, but what if he's not as effective? Considering the way this offense has performed, they've been basically horrific at any play where they're not targeting Cooper Kupp. I mean, so if he's less than 100%, I don't know what they're going to do here. So -2.5. I was very surprised to see this south of 3. You don't have to pay too much for it. -115. I don't mind -3 plus 100 either. I think whatever you want to do there is good. I like the Bucs to, I guess I could say, end the Rams season here.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's already over, but yeah, it would pretty much end it here. Yeah, this is a tough one for me as well. Like both teams have just been so underwhelming this season. The Bucs have the worst rushing offense in the NFL. LA's offense isn't much better. Like you said, Kupp is likely going to play the game, but we have no idea how effective he's going to be. He left last week early with an ankle injury. So like for me, it's another pass here because I hope the Bucs win for you if you're going to be in attendance, although it seems like it might kill you on the inside to see Tom Brady win a game, but like this one's just so gross for me. I'm going to have to pass. Eli, do you have a take on this one?
Yeah, I would lean with Mo here. I've been against Mo the last few weeks, but actually I did side with him on the Packers, I guess, in the end last week. But yeah, going back to it, actually, for one thing that I will say, you took another shot at the Ravens for that first half performance. It did set up the run game. So as much as we were both being critical in Discord about Baltimore's pass-heavy offense at the first half, they wore down that Bucs defense, and then they ran it all over them in the second half. So gotta plug my Ravens, of course, shameless plug to Baltimore. But in terms of pass rush, Mo hit it on the top of the head. The Rams offensive line still very banged up, even though Brian Allen is back at center. And Bucs under Todd Bowles, going back to that Packers game, even another game that Mo mentioned, the only reason why the Bucs were able to stay in that game in the second half and the Packers didn't blow them out even late in the first half was because Bowles and this Bucs defense can wheel up a ton of pressure, and they should be able to do so yet again with this blitz-heavy defense. And their secondary is also getting healthier. I mentioned health with Baltimore, Carlton Davis and Antoine Winfield, and Sean Murphy-Bunting. So a few key secondary members for Tampa Bay against an anemic pass offense for the Rams because they can't protect, and Kupp is hurt, two of most points, is sides with Tampa Bay here because of the health in that back seven. So I don't think I'm going to bet Tampa Bay, but I definitely think it's the right side. If you can get that 2.5, I would try to go that way, see if the market stays with the Rams here later in the week.
Time to take it into our final game of the day. The Titans had an ugly start to the season, but they are now tied for second in the AFC after winning their last 5 games. This weekend, they will take on the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a massive 12-point favorite right now after coming off of a bye week. Now, head coach Andy Reid is 20-3 after a bye, which is the best record in the NFL. But Reid and the Chiefs have also struggled against this Titans team in the past. Eli, why are you considering the Titans plus 12 here?
Okay, so I want to preface this with something because I have annihilated the Tennessee Titans on this podcast. Luckily I didn't bet the Houston Texans last week. I was going to mention Tennessee yet again, but I have had a lot of harsh criticism towards the Titans because in terms of a lot of metrics, they have underperformed, yet they have this 5-2 record that seems very fraudulent. And I get that. And to Nicole's point, Andy Reid is dominant off the bye. I believe 21-12 against the spread, including the playoffs. So playoff performance, especially, the Chiefs have been great with that extra rest. And then Patrick Mahomes, too, off the bye. 9-1 straight up, 5-4 against the spread in the playoffs, so not as great with the market giving him a little too much credit. And then 2-0 straight up and 2-0 against the spread off the bye at home in the regular season. I believe both of those numbers coming in the regular season. So looking back at some of these recent off-the-bye trends for Kansas City in terms of the regular season performances. In 2021, Chiefs were 8.5-point favorites against the Broncos. So last season, they covered and won straight up, won by 13, 22-19. In 2020, the season before, Chiefs were minus 9.5 at the Raiders. 3 straight games against the Raiders, by the way, coming off the bye week here in the spiel. So 9.5-point favorites on the road. They won straight up, lost against the spread, 35-31. In 2019, Chiefs were 10.5-point favorites. I believe that was against the then Oakland Raiders, and they covered and won straight up, 40-9. And back in 2018, the Chiefs were 14-point favorites at Oakland, and they won straight up but lost against the spread, 40-33. So I get we have all of these positive trends that point to Andy Reid performing so well off the bye, but you also have to take a look at the recent sample size when Kansas City has been a double-digit favorite or over a touchdown favorite against the spread, and the numbers don't necessarily lean his way. And you think about the Tennessee Titans, again, I have bashed them throughout the season in my writing and on this podcast, but I think everything's pretty much being baked into the number at this point. It was Tennessee, I want to say, as 11.5 point road underdogs. Then the market steamed this up. I believe one better in particular in the last couple days. And the Titans are tied for the fourth lowest net yards per play, so that accounts for both sides of the ball. And they're essentially tied with the Chiefs for the highest red zone efficiency in terms of scoring touchdowns inside the 20-yard line. And then you also factor in that they may start Malik Willis, even though Ryan Tannehill is going to practice on Wednesday as we're recording this, I believe on a limited basis. You would expect throughout the rest of the week. Maybe this line comes back down to the Titans a little bit if Tannehill does play, but the ankle injury is on his plant foot. So you have to factor that into the equation. But going back to last week at the Texans, and I fully understand that it is a bad Houston defense and a bad Houston team overall. The Titans have faced their fair share of bad opponents during this 5-2 stretch to start the season, like I've mentioned on the podcast and again in my write-ups that you can find and in the Discord, the Lines Discord, and over at TheLines.com. But last week, going back to week 8, no Titans offensive lineman allowed more than one pressure against that Texans defensive front. And the Titans had to pass protect just 14 times with that run-heavy game script, and both of those stats coming via Pro Football Focus. So keyword being here, if the Titans can establish a positive game script. No, I have not bet the Titans against the spread just yet, as I'm going to wait to see what happens with this line over the course of the week. Also haven't decided if I want to pull the trigger on it, but don't like this card overall. But if the Titans can establish a positive game script with one of the most explosive running backs in the NFL in Derrick Henry, and keep in mind the Chiefs are allowing the 8th highest rushing success rate this season, and no Frank Clark, which maybe comes more into play in terms of his ability to rush the passer, as he's been suspended, I believe, for this game and the next. And then on the other side of the ball with this Titans defense, they have the 10th rated defense overall, or top 10 defense, that is, in regards to opponents' expected points added per play. Kristen Fulton is playing at a top 15, top 10 level in terms of his coverage grade over at Pro Football Focus. And the Titans can also rush the passer with Simmons and the rest of this defensive front. And similar to Washington, who I mentioned earlier, they don't need to blitz to do so. So all those factors being considered, again, I have bashed the Titans, but similar to my Providence hate going back to last college basketball season, I think all the factors are being baked in enough where there might be a little value here to back Tennessee, and I know Mo is going to kill me for it, but might have to go with the Titans here as hefty road dogs at the Chiefs, even with Andy Reid coming off the bye.
I'll give Mo the final say. For me personally, if you touched on it, Tannehill is limited at practice. We don't know whether or not he's going to start. If he doesn't play, I do think this line probably moves even more in the Chiefs' favor. But running back Derrick Henry, who can put up some numbers, and if he can put up even like 75% of what he did last week, this game I do think might be closer than the odds makers are expecting. He rushed for 219 yards with 2 touchdowns last weekend. He now has over 100 rushing yards in his last 4 games. The Chiefs did have one of the best run defenses in the first 4 weeks of the season, but that has not been the case as of late. I personally am not going to look at the spread here, but once these Derrick Henry props come out, I would like to take a look at those. They're not live yet, but I'll probably be taking a look at Henry rushing yards or a touchdown prop here for this game. But now, Mo, I know you're ready. Oh, go ahead.
So, Nicole, first time, I think, on the podcast all season that you have correlated 2 of your bets for the games that I've discussed my direction. I just would like to give you a round of applause for that, because I have not felt this sort of love from you on the podcast that you have gifted me with on this episode. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I was going to say, I do think this is the first time that I've actually passed on both of Mo's games and have been siding with you. So things change, it's never too late. Week 9, we can turn things around. But Mo, I know you have something to say about this. So let's just, let's go ahead. The floor is yours.
First of all, I want to say, if Malik Willis starts, the Chiefs are going to win by 30. And don't bet any amount on any size spread on the Titans because it ain't going to be big enough. Okay. There's absolutely no way Malik Willis, who had like 80 yards passing or something in the last game, is going to do anything in Arrowhead in a negative script. Okay. This team is bad, like Eli was talking about. This is a bad team. The Titans are not good. The only thing they can do is slam Derrick Henry into the line. Thing about that is, I know that the Chiefs have had some tough games where they're not performing the best against opposing running backs. But, look at the passing games backing these guys. Josh Jacobs, the Chiefs are trying not to get beat by Devontae Adams. They're not caring about some Josh Jacobs 7-yard runs. That's not that big of a deal. And they're still been very good at preventing the huge plays, which I think is just what you're going to need here if you're the Titans. You need 80-yard touchdowns, not 15-yard runs. And the Chiefs are, they've actually been pretty strong against preventing the very long runs. So they're going to make the Titans move it first down by first down. And I just don't think it's going to happen. Okay. I know Ryan Tannehill's been pretty good, but this is a tough spot for the Titans for sure. This is an atrocious passing game overall. You just don't have any weapons. And I would lean to the Chiefs. I think a line between 11 and 14 is probably fair. So not really having any interest in betting the Chiefs if Ryan Tannehill is in there. But I would say I've bet on a few backup quarterbacks in my day. Okay, this is not the spot for it.
In my day, you're some 80-year-old grandpa in my day.
Well, I'm not sitting here trying to pretend I'm just auto-fading these backups. I just...
Sure.
Malik Willis in a negative script. This guy's not even ready for, the Texans, clearly. He's just handing off. So I wish him the best, but it's not going to go well.
No, if this game gets to a negative game script for the Titans offense and Malik Willis is under center or in read option shotgun, it's not going to go well. But the question is, does it get to a negative game script for Tennessee?
What I would say about this is I don't have anything to back this up, but my anecdotal experience is that the Chiefs don't do well as very large favorites the last few years. I think they come out a little bit sleepy in some of these spots. So I could definitely see the Titans hanging around. I just don't think it's going to be any sort of remote sweat for the Chiefs to pretty easily win this game. But yeah, if the Titans do fall behind, if it's 14-0 Chiefs, I guess just bet whatever the live line is for Chiefs because the Titans are just going to get buried after that.
All right. Well, we shall see this weekend. And if you are betting this weekend, good luck with your bets. As always, thanks for tuning in with us. Eli and I will be back tomorrow with a special guest to take a look at some behind the scenes action for sports betting and what it is like to be in the risk side of the sports betting industry. Have a great day. We will see you next time.